Welcome to Tokyo Game Life, a Tokyo-based video game podcast focusing on Nintendo and gaming culture in Japan's capital. Your host Mono here to bring you a slice of gaming life from Tokyo. It's a new year, and that means wild, rampant speculation about Nintendo. YouTuber Dale Clayton is back as we give our predictions for Nintendo in 2026. We take a swing at what games, movies, and Tokyo-based exhibits the Big N will throw at us this year. And speaking of exhibits, in the feature, I take you inside the Suikoden 30th anniversary exhibit happening in Tokyo. Let's start with the game section and Nintendo in 2026 with Dale Clayton. We're already a few days into the new year, so we got to get some Nintendo predictions out there before they come true. Joining me to make some predictions about Nintendo in 2026 is a special guest. So guest, please introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, it's Dale here again. Long-time listeners should be a little familiar with me by now. This is maybe my fifth or sixth time on the podcast. It's great to be back.
You've been on quite a lot, and the last time you were on the podcast, we talked about the Switch 2 launch in Japan. It's been about 6 months, so how have you been enjoying your Switch 2?
Yeah, it's been great, especially in the last couple of months when a lot of things all just started releasing at once. I was so glad to have tried the Switch 2 editions of Pokemon and Metroid.
Oh yeah.
So happy to have those versions instead of the original Switch ones. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I think it's a very impressive first half of the Switch first year. A lot of people have been talking about 2025 as Switch 2's first year. And guys, it's only been out 6 months. It still has another 6 before we can give a retrospective on Switch 2's first year. And today we're going to make some predictions about those latter 6 months and the rest of 2026. But before that, we got to look back at our 2025 predictions. So the moment of truth, how accurate were we last year? I think 2025, definitely very unexpected and very unorthodox, even though we knew that there would be a new console. So Dale, you said Switch 2 would launch with a 3D Mario game. Now, you should have said a 3D Pauline game, and you would have been right. And your second prediction, Mario Kart would have a major focus on online. I would give you maybe a half point for that, since there is a lot of unique online functionality with the open world. And your third prediction, Switch 2 would be stacked with games its first 1 or 2 years. I think that's pretty true, but we're still seeing it come into fruition. Fourth, Smash Brothers revealed. Not quite. There was a new Sakurai game that was revealed. And even last episode, you did mention that, you noticed there's a job listing for Bandai Namco relating to a Sakurai project. And you were right. Bandai Namco and Sakurai did team up for a game in 2025, but not Smash Brothers. And finally, your last prediction was a 3D Kirby game with dinosaurs. I'm trying to think, is there a dinosaur in Kirby Air Riders? Maybe somewhere in there. So how do you feel about your 2025 predictions?
Yeah, I think they went pretty well. It was fun to see not Smash Brothers, but a new Sakurai game. It's just as good in my book. Mario Kart is in 3D. It has Mario. It launched with the Switch. I'd like to count that as a 3D Mario.
And Mario Kart World, it does feel like a platformer at times, especially when you're exploring the open world. You do need to do wall jumps and wall grinds and all this other stuff. But yes, if you did say a 3D game with Pauline in it, you would have been 100% correct. Now, my predictions, I said a roguelike Star Fox game would come out. I should have said a roguelike Donkey Kong game, because we did get a roguelike Donkey Kong expansion. So something roguelike from Nintendo did come out, but Star Fox was nowhere to be seen. I also said Switch 2 upgrade patches will be free for NSO subscribers. And I was right for Zelda. We did get that for quote-unquote free if you are a NSO subscriber. But ironically, the other Nintendo Switch 2 editions have not been tied to NSO. My third prediction, the top slot would be for strange peripherals. I guess the camera is a little strange, the way they went with it. I said a teaser for a 3D Zelda game. We sort of got a 3D Zelda game with Hyrule Warriors. And then I said Nintendo would have a weird name for DLSS, which ironically they didn't. They just said, hey, we're using VRR, we're using DLSS, this supports HDR. They used a lot of really technical terms during the Switch 2 presentation, which was a little surprising. I definitely thought Nintendo would add in some sort of unique vernacular or some sort of weird word to describe the functionality of the Switch 2, but they really didn't. So I got some stuff right, but I was off on a lot of stuff. Our flash predictions, these are short yes or no answers that we gave last year. The first one, would we be able to walk into a store and buy Switch 2 in Japan on launch? We both said no, and that is correct. It had the lottery system. But now you can walk into a store and probably get a Switch 2 in Japan. Also, Wario and Waluigi will be in the next Mario movie. Dale, you said no, and I said yes. So Dale, you were correct on that one. Did you expect...
We still don't know. They could show up. We still don't know.
They could. If they do, it would maybe be like a post-credit teaser. But were you surprised they went Galaxy with the pitch? Because we didn't know that it would be Galaxy for the second movie yet.
I was really surprised they went with Galaxy, especially as there was a leak from Universal saying that it would be the Super Mario World movie. And I thought we'd go straight into World and see Koopalings, and I was expecting the Koopalings in the Mario World movie to coincide with the Koopalings being added as DLC for Mario Kart World. I thought that was a whole plan, but it was completely taken by surprise that it was Mario Galaxy.
And a new console added to NSO. We both said no, ironically, even though GameCube was added, and Virtual Boy is on the way. Also, ZA will have Mega Pikachu or Mega Raichu. Dale, you said yes on Mega Raichu. I was trying to be a little cute, and I said they're going to break all the rules and make a Mega Pikachu. You stood by Mega Raichu, and you were not only right, you were right twice in a row. You got 2 Mega Raichus. And the last flash prediction we had, a new princess will be added to the Mario universe. We both said no, and we were correct, so no new princess just yet. So here's what we should have said. We should have said Nintendo will add Virtual Boy to NSO with a separate Virtual Boy case. And we also should have said Benny Safdie will voice Bowser Jr. And we also should have said they will introduce Game Key cards, and there will be a new Kirby Air Ride, and that Silk Song will actually come out. So if we said those completely bizarre predictions, we would have been 100% right. But that's also the fun of doing these predictions, because honestly, the crazier you go, the more likely you'll be correct. Because new Smash Brothers, yeah, that seems way more likely than the guy who directed Uncut Gems will voice Bowser Jr. So how do you feel about your predictions this year?
I think mine are mostly safe. There's one that is a little bit unusual, a little bit crazy. Perhaps I think they're all pretty reliable.
Let your imagination run wild, because Nintendo, they're definitely the worst prediction you could have. That's probably the most likely to actually come true. And I am publishing this episode a few days into 2026, but we are recording this in 2025. So if anything is already true, we nailed it. So let's go ahead and get into our 2026 predictions. So Dale, hit me with your first prediction.
Okay, I apologize if this overlaps with anything that you've got prepared, because it's a pretty obvious one. It is Pokemon's 30th anniversary this year. I think we'll see a variety of different things to celebrate it. Of course, we'll get Generation 10, probably releasing towards the end of the year. I don't want to speculate too much on that. But some of the other things we'll see, I think we've been wanting to see Pokemon Red, Blue, Gold, Silver, Ruby, Sapphire come to the Virtual Console, and they still haven't. And I wonder if we will get a dedicated app for Pokemon that will have a different subscription fee. Maybe it's like another tier of Pokemon Home subscription. But I think we'll finally see those old games on Switch and Switch 2 with compatibility with Pokemon Home, but through its own dedicated app. I think Pokemon would like to position that as a separate experience to tie in with the 30th anniversary.
Actually, I almost had that on my prediction list as well, but I took it off. So I'm glad I took it off so you could have it. But I definitely think that is very likely. I don't know if it's maybe like hopium for me, because that's something that a lot of people have wanted for such a long time, is Generation 1 on the Switch, either through NSO or just maybe even just, what would you think about if they just sold it for, I don't know, $10 or $15? Here's Pokemon Red for $10 or $15 on Switch. Would you be happy with that, or would you be a little upset?
I think that's personally what I would want to see. However, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be tied into a subscription service. Worst case scenario, it's a timed exclusive. I would absolutely hate that. Like with Super Mario 35,
Yes.
It'll only be around for a limited time. I would absolutely hate that. But I think it will come in some way. And another reason that makes me think about this is we've also got Pokemon Champions coming this year as well. So I feel like the 30th anniversary is going to unify a lot of the disparate threads of Pokemon. We'll get old games, Pokemon Home, new games, a new generation, Pokemon Champions, everything all just coming together in a big way.
Yeah, I definitely think a dedicated Pokemon NSO app makes a whole lot of sense, especially because if they wanted to tie it into Pokemon Home in any way, I think that would be hard to integrate in the current Game Boy app. if they make it available, they will want to tie it into Pokemon Home somehow, some way, similar to the 3DS games where you were able to transfer your Pokemon into Pokemon Bank, which was a really fun feature. So I think a dedicated Pokemon NSO app, I hope that comes true. Do you think they'll just do Gen 1 or will they go up to, I don't know, even up to like Gen 3 or what's the limit?
I could see it being spaced out, starting with Red and Blue first, and then maybe Yellow 6 months later, and Gold and Silver a year after that. I could see Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Leaf Green, Fire Red. I think those are way too popular and beloved to be left behind. Once we get to the DS era, I'm not sure how one could play those on the Switch or Switch 2. I'm sure they'll figure something out, but I think that's quite far in the future. But the first 3 generations, yeah, I could definitely see it.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would want. Even just Generation 1 by itself, just red, blue, yellow, I would be content with that. But of course, if they could go all the way up to Emerald, that would be the best case scenario for me. So I'm hoping your prediction comes true. Do you have any Gen 10 predictions, or are you saving that for later on?
I think it'll be a new generation, but of course with a lot of Gen 1 nostalgia, in the same way that Generation 6 had a lot of Gen 1 nostalgia, being a 30th anniversary. I could see them cherry-picking some of the best, most loved parts of Pokemon and putting them front and center, or reimagining Charizard. I could totally see that happening.
I do have a Gen 10 related question in our Flash predictions, and I'm very curious to hear your answer, but we'll save that for later on. All right, my first prediction. I'm thinking about what Nintendo could have on the docket for 2026, because it is truly crazy how many games Nintendo already announced for 2026. Like, for example, we've got Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch 2 edition. We've got Mario Tennis Fever. We've got Tomodachi Life, which is Switch 1, but still coming from Nintendo. We have Rhythm Heaven coming out later this year. We have Pokopia, which is a big game. We have Pokemon Champions, another Pokemon game. We have Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, which is Intelligent Systems' big new Fire Emblem release. We have Splatoon Raiders, whatever that is supposed to be. That's 8 games already. Nintendo releases 1 game a month. That's most of the year already. I'm a little curious about, maybe they don't have a whole lot of unannounced games, but I'm sure they do. So it is a bit hard to think about, they can't shove in everything in the first year or in 2026. One game I do think is very likely to come out in 2026 is a new Pikmin game. So you might think, you're picking that over 3D Mario, over Smash Brothers? Yes, because I think Nintendo wants to have a Pikmin game maybe early on in the Switch 2's life, so it becomes more of an evergreen title. Pikmin 4, it sold well enough, but these types of games, they do better if they're released early on in the Switch's life. Like, for example, Luigi's Mansion 3, when that came out, it sold pretty well early on. It sold a few million copies. But now Luigi's Mansion 3 has sold over 14 million copies. Just slowly but surely, it's sold millions of copies because it's been available for so long. And I think Nintendo wants Pikmin to be like that as well. Pikmin 3 was like that, where it came out in 2020, and then people picked it up. It still has the stigma of being, this is a port. And Pikmin 4 sold well enough, but by the time it came out, I think a lot of people were maybe waiting for Switch 2. So I think Nintendo, they want to get some sort of Pikmin game out there pretty early in the Switch 2's life. That way they can add on to it throughout the life or make it an evergreen title, similar to what they've done with Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to keep selling throughout the Switch 2's life. I don't know if we're going to get a Bonanza 2 before we get a Switch 3. And I think they want something like that with Pikmin. They want to elevate Pikmin even more so. They've definitely been focusing on that a whole lot these past few years. And I think the next big step is to have a major Pikmin game available very early on in the Switch 2's life. That way, when people are picking up the console, that's one of the games they will pick up. I haven't really settled on if it's going to be Pikmin 5. I wish they would get rid of these numbers. We don't need Metroid Prime 5. Call it Metroid something else. Pikmin 5, we don't need that. Call it Pikmin World. Call it Pikmin, I don't know, Park, Archipelago, anything besides just the number 5. I kind of want to move away from numbers for Nintendo games. But I think it will be not really a spin-off, but like the next big Pikmin. So I'm going to go with new Pikmin in 2026 as my first prediction.
I think it's very likely. Nintendo's been pushing it pretty hard. The brand in general. We constantly see new merchandise for Pikmin. We see the commercials on the train every day.
Oh, yeah.
They've got the app, which they're pushing really hard through Nintendo Today. We got the update for Pikmin 4 a couple of months ago. I think they are really trying to put that brand front and center. And we also got that funny little YouTube Nintendo Today short earlier, a few months ago. So they are pushing the brand. I could totally see something coming. I agree with that point about the numbers. I think I might have even said on this podcast, I didn't like that Metroid Prime 4 was called Metroid Prime 4. I think it should have been called Metroid Beyond. I think it's good to get away from numbers. And I agree with Pikmin. Calling it Pikmin 4 might have turned a few people off, just having thought, oh, it's part of a series. I need to have played the first 3. You can just pick up Pikmin 4. You don't need to have played any other games. It's almost like a soft reboot. Anybody can just play it as their first Pikmin game.
What would you like to see from a new Pikmin game? Do you think it's going to be iterative, or do you expect them to maybe make it like, I don't know, open world is such like a cliche, but do you expect them to change up the formula at all?
I don't know if they'll change up the formula too drastically, but I can certainly see an expansion of the new things that were in Pikmin. Those being the Dandori challenges. I think those were fantastic. I would have loved to have been able to play more of them. More challenges like that. The night expeditions. I think we could totally see longer, more expanded, more exciting nighttime gameplay. In that game, you're building your home base, how you have to collect the castaways and they join the home base. I could totally see like a more advanced base building feature. You could build your own little town where you live. And of course, new Pikmin types. Every Pikmin game introduces 2 new Pikmin, so I can't wait to see what they have next. I would have never expected Glow Pikmin last time. Ice Pikmin seemed predictable, but Glow Pikmin was not something I ever thought I'd see, so I'd love to see what they do with that.
So, Dale, hit me with your second prediction.
Okay, this one's probably not so exciting, but I think we're going to see Nintendo pull the plug on Switch 1. Anything that has not already been announced for Switch 1 will not get a Switch 1 edition. I think any brand new game that Nintendo announces will be Switch 2 exclusive. I think we'll see Rhythm Heaven, we'll see Tomodachi Life, but that'll probably be it for the Switch 1. I think they'll dedicate everything to Switch 2 exclusives from now on. It's nice having these Switch 2 editions, bridging the gap, but I think it's time to leave the Switch 1 behind, move on, and put everything into Switch 2.
So you don't think Kirby is going to pop up and give the death knell to the Switch 1 like he normally does for other Nintendo consoles?
He could, you never know.
Yeah, there was a rumor like, oh, Kirby Planet Robobot is coming. Well, I think last year that was a big rumor, but there was not even a hint towards that actually happening, and other Kirby games instead came out. So do you think Rhythm Heaven will be the final Nintendo published release for Switch 1?
That's what I'm thinking. I can't see them coming out and saying, oh, we've got this new game and it's coming to Switch 1. I mean, we had that Yoshi game revealed towards the end of last year, and that would have been perfect for a Switch 1 release, I think, because a lot of small children have Switch 1s but not Switch 2. But even that's a Switch 2 exclusive, so I don't think there's going to be much coming to Switch 1 anymore. I think the console's had its time and it's time to move on.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting way to go out with Rhythm Heaven, a series with a big cult following. I definitely think Tomodachi Life specifically, I think that is going to be a big seller. I'm low-key obsessed with the Tomodachi Life Reddit because I think a lot of people who play Tomodachi Life maybe only play Tomodachi Life and they just have no idea about other games. Like a very common thread on the Tomodachi Life Reddit is, oh, is Tomodachi Life coming to Switch Lite? Because I only have a Switch Lite, so is it playable on Switch Lite? That's just the type of people who play that type of game. They only play this one game. So I definitely expect that to be a huge seller. Do you think Tomodachi Life will get a Switch 2 edition?
I don't see why not. If it doesn't have an actual Switch 2 edition, I think it will come with a Switch 2 enhancement like the Mario Galaxy Collection that had a free update for Switch 2, but they don't market it as a Switch 2 edition. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet getting that huge performance upgrade for Switch 2. So if it's not a Switch 2 edition, I think it will still run better on Switch 2 with an update to go along with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Your second prediction, bye-bye Switch 1. Rhythm Heaven will play its last tune. It will play a dirge or the funeral song for Switch 1. My second prediction, this one's a little crazy. This is, again, another prediction I hope I can just will into existence. I think a canceled game will come to NSO. Maybe you remember that once upon a time, Nintendo released Star Fox 2 on their Super Nintendo Classic and also on NSO, a game that never came out, but it was completed. And I think Nintendo is going to do this again in 2026 for NSO. Now, there are a couple of candidates, and the reason why I think this is because I just randomly remembered that there's a game called Dragon Hopper on the Virtual Boy. Dragon Hopper is a game developed by Intelligent Systems, a major Nintendo partner, and it never came out just because of the Virtual Boy. It crashed and burned, and they just never released this game. Even though people say it is done, and it even has North American box art, and it was even previewed in North American magazines. And Nintendo has been releasing a lot of games for the first time in the West via NSO. For example, we got Wrecking Crew 98. We got Panel Dupon for the first time ever. We got Mario Super Picross. These are Japan-only games that just randomly hit NSO one day. We got Starfy. All 3 Starfy games, untranslated, were put on the North American Nintendo Switch Online app. So I think they will pull a Star Fox 2 and release something on NSO that has been canceled or that has never been released before. Because the pool of NSO games, especially for NES, Super NES, that pool is getting more shallow by the day. So they don't have a whole lot left. So I think they will dig in and maybe release some canceled games. Dragon Hopper on Virtual Boy, again, Virtual Boy only has so many games. If you want people to buy that $100 thing, even though nobody knows what Dragon Hopper is, that news headline of never before released Nintendo game is now on NSO, that will catch people's attention. And also Sound Fantasy on Super Nintendo that never came out. I want to say uses the mouse controls. I think that is a kind of a well-known game that Nintendo canceled that was never released, but I think it uses the mouse functionality in some way. They released Mario Paint on NSO. So I think either Sound Fantasy or Dragon Hopper for Virtual Boy. I'm trying to think of some other canceled Nintendo games that could possibly be on there. Maybe something like Panel Dupon for N64, but I don't know how long or how far in development that got into. But I think either Dragon Hopper or Sound Fantasy, or maybe one I'm not thinking about, is coming to NSO in 2026. So yes, canceled game that has never been released before is coming to NSO in 2026.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I'm sorry, I've never heard of those ones that you were talking about. I've just been racking my brain trying to think of cancelled or rumored games. Star Fox Grand Prix, if that was even real.
Yes.
The original Metroid Dread for DS. But yeah, it's certainly within the realms of possibility.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want the Satellaview or the N64 DD games released. And part of me feels like if those haven't been released yet, then they're never coming. But never is a long time. Those are really untranslated, even though they have released, I think, Starfy untranslated on North American NSO. That was a little surprising because even though it is a platformer, it is an adventure game as well. And you do need to solve puzzles, and there is quite a lot of dialogue in those games. So that's definitely, I would say, the boldest Japan-only release that Nintendo has just shoved onto North American NSO. So I do think they are getting bolder with these NSO releases. My second prediction, a canceled game will come to NSO. So Dale, let's move on to your third prediction.
Yep, I think we're going to see more commitment from Nintendo on things that are not games, and that is movies and potentially TV. I think we're going to see even more announcements this year. 2025 was a great year. We got the confirmation of Mario Galaxy movie. The Legend of Zelda live-action movie started filming, and we saw photographs from the set, so we had our first look at that. That's looking quite nice. I think we'll see even more of that from Nintendo. I think Mario Galaxy movie will end with a tease for something new, possibly the Donkey Kong movie, Luigi's Mansion movie, a third Mario movie. I don't know what IPs could be turned into movies next, but there's so many to draw on. I'd be happy to see Kirby getting a movie or a new TV series. I think we're going to see something new.
Is there any IP that you would want to see converted into some sort of movie or TV show?
I'd love to see Star Fox as a movie with actors providing motion capture with the level of fidelity of the Avatar films. I don't think that'll ever happen, but that's a pipe dream for me.
I think if they do Star Fox, having some sort of stop motion animation would be fun. The callback from like the puppets. Aardman, who does that, they did a Pokemon Concierge, I believe, and they do Shaun the Sheep and Wallace and Gromit. They might be busy with the Pokemon Concierge, so I don't know if they can also do Star Fox, but I think the callback to the puppet style animation would also be really fun. I think I predicted like maybe 2 years ago that they're going to make a Splatoon movie which they haven't announced yet, but I'm surprised there hasn't been any sort of cross-media Splatoon thing. There is a manga, but there's no anime or movie or anything like that. So,
yeah, likewise, that's ringing a bell when you said that. Splatoon does get hologram concerts here in Japan. It's got a huge following here compared to the rest of the world, so it's surprising that we haven't seen anything yet. There's so many things that Nintendo could draw upon. I think they're going to really push that going forward. I'd say the next one is probably Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's back in the spotlight with 2 games getting released in 2025. The Donkey Kong area in Universal theme parks, not just in Japan but overseas too, getting revealed. So it's definitely on the way.
Would you like to see any more live action movies?
When it comes to live action, I think Metroid, of course, would work really well. It's a bit of a struggle to think of other Nintendo games that would work in live action.
Could they do live action Xenoblade? That's the one you get the Avatar team to make, I think. You need those sort of like alien looking locales and landscapes and monsters.
I would think I'd rather see that as an anime, but it could certainly work.
Yeah, if James Cameron gets bored, he's got 2 more Avatar movies to go, but then after Avatar 5 comes out, he can get working straight to Xenoblade, or maybe he has to start with Xenogears first and then work his way up. So he's got the rest of his life planned out. But speaking of that, my third prediction, I say that Monolith Soft is working on a non-Xeno IP. By this, I mean they are either the main developer or the co-developer. They do a lot of development help. I think recently they posted an article about them helping on Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. They even worked on Pokemon. They've worked on Mario Kart World. They help Nintendo in a support fashion for many of their games. But I think their next game, I think they could be working on, I'm sure they are working on a Xenoblade game, but I think we will also see them either through a split team or just some other way. We're working on a game that doesn't have Xeno in the name. Either an original IP or maybe they will be handed another Nintendo IP. I don't know, maybe because I know you know more about Xenoblade than I do. I don't know how wrapped up the Xenoblade story is. If it's, actually Xenoblade 4 is 100% happening based on the epilogue scene in Xenoblade 3, or if, actually that story arc is wrapped up. But I just feel somehow, some way that Monolith Soft, they're getting a bit more prominent and they have really proven themselves as a major partner for Nintendo. I don't want to say, they're stuck in the Xeno mines, because I'm sure many people will be happy if they just only do Xenoblade games from now on. But I can definitely see them expand beyond Xeno something. So I think in 2026, we will see a non-Xeno IP from Monolith Soft, either new or an existing one they haven't worked on before.
When it comes to wrapping up the Xenoblade story, I feel like it is concluded quite nicely, but the option to explore further is still there. There's still potential to continue it as Xenoblade or Xeno something else, but if Monolith were to work on a brand new IP or resurrect an IP, I would like to see a different genre. I don't want it to be an RPG. I think if it's RPG, then the Xeno series is their baby. It's what they're good at. But if it's not, I would like to see them do an adventure game. As you mentioned, they've done assistance with Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, doing their own open world adventure that focuses on action with fewer RPG elements. I'd love to see that. So if they are doing something, I'd like to see it not be an RPG, or if it is, certainly not an RPG in the style of Xenoblade.
Yeah, that's a good point. It would be really interesting to see them work on a different genre besides their typical JRPG, because they're great at making these massive open worlds. And they've done a lot of support work for Zelda, that's an action adventure game, Mario Kart World, that's a racing game. So I think they could definitely expand beyond JRPG. I am trying to think about, is there another Nintendo IP that they could handle? I love the game like the Mysterious Murasame Castle. I don't know if they could bring that back, but I would love to see them do that. It is closer to Zelda in a lot of ways. So them making a sort of Zelda-ish take on that game or that franchise would be really interesting. They could maybe do Paper Mario. That would be fun if they were just given Paper Mario just to see what else they could do with that. I'm trying to think what other IPs. Metroid. We just got a Metroid, and they're not shy about handing Metroid off to Mercury Steam or another IP. I'm just trying to think about what IP. Maybe Star Fox, a Monolith Soft Star Fox. That would be pretty exciting, to be honest. I think they would maybe have some sort of good idea about what they should do with Star Fox.
Yeah, Star Fox is one of those things that I really want to see again. It's not one of my predictions this time, but yeah, whatever form it comes back in, if Monolith is behind it, it would certainly be very good. I can't see them messing that one up.
All right, so Dale, hit me with your fourth prediction.
Okay, this is the one I'm most excited for. I know you and I are both big fans of Donkey Kong Bonanza. So if you remember playing that game, there's a section that happens about 2/3 into the game that feels a little bit out of place with the rest of the game. It's the racing layer. I actually enjoyed that for what it was. It felt a little bit out of place in terms of the rest of the game. Suddenly you're just doing racing and it's over pretty quickly. But I would love to see that expanded into a full game. This year we've had 3 big racing games, Mario Kart World, Sonic Racing, Kirby Air Riders. Next year we're going to see Diddy and Dixie's Rumble Racing. That's my prediction. So Donkey Kong's had racing games before, or I should say Diddy Kong has had racing games before. And with Diddy and Dixie being the hosts of the racing layer, I'd love to see it expanded into a full game. Not only just to see what they could do with the racing mechanics. I thought the racing mechanics look interesting in that the terrain that you race over affects your movement and what you can do. I could totally see that expanded on into something really unique and interesting that we've never seen before. And also to just put the rest of the Kong family back into the spotlight again. We've had the Emerald Rush events where you got the statues of Chunky and Lanky, proving that Nintendo haven't forgotten about them. They got canonical new renders in 2025. Not only that, we got Jungle Beat statues as well with Ninja Kong and Ghastly King. And in the DK Isle DLC, you go into the house and you can see brand new artwork of Candy Kong, meaning she hasn't been forgotten about either. If they're going to bring the Kong family into a game, I think a racing spin-off is certainly the place for it. Bring back some of the animal buddies. Bring back even some of the Diddy Kong racing characters from the Nintendo 64. Let's see Whizpig again. If a Donkey Kong movie is going forward, I think a movie would certainly include all of the Kongs or a lot more members of the Kong family. It would be nice to see them in both games and movies.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. I know a lot of people were saying, oh, why do we have Mario Kart World and Kirby Air Riders in the same year? But Kirby Air Riders is, I would hesitate to call that a kart racer because that is almost like its own thing. So do you expect this Donkey Kong racing game, how would it be super different from Mario Kart World? Is it just like a really emphasis on like the terrain creation, or how do you imagine it separates itself from Mario Kart World?
I could see the terrain-based racing really being a unique selling point, being unlike anything else. The perfect game for a track builder. I don't think Mario Kart lends itself to building your own tracks. The Kirby's Air Riders, you couldn't build your own tracks. But if you're just put into an open, like a vacuum of space where you have the tools to build tracks out of different terrain, it could be really fun. I could totally see that working. Having a bit of player creation involved would go a long way, mixed with those unique aspects of racing that we've never seen before. It has potential to be something completely distinct from Mario Kart or Kirby.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Because as a kid, I was definitely in the Diddy Kong racing is better than Mario Kart 64 camp, even though I did like Mario Kart 64 as well. And that's something a lot of people have wanted them to bring back. And yeah, you go back to Donkey Kong Bonanza, we have all these weird HD models of these very obscure Donkey Kong characters. I am wondering, why are they making these? This is so strange, especially just for like an optional DLC. I guess if you want to sell that DLC, oh, here's a HD model of Chunky Kong. Maybe that will get people to open up their wallet.
They're brand new renders. Surely they're being used for something.
Yeah. After playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, I have been thinking they could make a full-blown remake of Donkey Kong 64. Like, that could happen. And these new models of Donkey Kong 64 characters, it makes me think that is, I don't want to say likely, but at least on the table or within the realm of possibility. And that's definitely a game that if you remade it, you could quote unquote fix it, or there's a lot you could do to make it much better. But I think a new Donkey Kong racing game or Diddy Kong racing game, I would definitely be really excited, especially if they do implement the destruction or the terraforming of Donkey Kong Bonanza into the game.
In terms of that racing layer, what I remember, there was just a few different terrain types. There was the mud and that rainbow terrain that makes you fly. Imagine if you could make tracks with water. Suddenly you suck up some water as the elephant, and then you can spray it in front of you and then swim through it and create shortcuts over gaps using water that you can swim through, or picking up some goo and spraying it everywhere to leave as a trap for your opponents. I think it could work really well.
All right, my fourth prediction. Going back to what is Nintendo going to release this year, I was looking at all the different developers. Who does not have a game recently? A lot of the EPD teams, they have at least had their finger in some pie. Either Mario Kart World, Dragon Drive, like EPD 5, maybe they're working on Splatoon Raiders and the new Animal Crossing update for Switch 2. A lot of the teams and support partners have had a game accounted for either in 2025 or 2024. But there's one team that hasn't released a game since 2023. And I think it's going to release a game in 2026. And that is ArtePiazza. Now, listeners, you might think, who is that? They are the developers behind Super Mario RPG Remake that came out in 2023. And they are also famous for the Dragon Quest 3DS remakes. And they work on Dragon Quest games and remakes for Square. That's what they've mostly been doing. And working on Super Mario RPG for Nintendo was kind of a big deviation from what they typically do. Part of me is thinking maybe they are just working on Dragon Quest 12, a game that who knows how far that has progressed. Their last credited game is Super Mario RPG. My prediction is they are working on a Switch 2 exclusive game for Nintendo that will come out in 2026. And I'm trying to think, what could it be? Is it just a remake? There's plenty of games they could remake. Even from, like, if they do something that Square made, they could remake Xenogears. They could remake, I don't know, Vagrant Story. It's a little funny to think about, a Vagrant Story remake is exclusive to Switch 2. But I think a Live Alive remake exclusive to Switch was also equally as crazy, and that did happen. But I could also see a new game, and I honestly could see ArtePiazza making Super Mario RPG 2, a brand new game in the Super Mario RPG lineage, because that game sold extremely well on Switch. And that showed that, hey, out of Paper Mario, out of Mario and Luigi, Super Mario RPG is getting a lot more attention, or that one sold the best out of those three. I think it would be silly not to explore a Super Mario RPG 2 after it sold over 3 million copies very quickly back in 2023. And that would definitely get a lot of people excited. Just bring Geno back. He doesn't have to be like a major character. You don't have to follow the story. If Geno popped up, people would be excited. So yes, I think in 2026, ArtePiazza is going to release some exclusive game on Switch 2.
Yeah, I've had that exact same thought that Super Mario RPG 2 from that team is very likely. It follows the pattern of Nintendo getting a new studio to do a remake and then having that team work on the sequel. One that comes to mind is Majors and Famicom Detective Club series, Mercury Steam with Samus Returns, and then Metroid Dread.
Yes.
So I think there's a precedent for it. And I would love to see it. If it's not Mario RPG 2, then just a Geno game would be fun.
Yeah. And also, Grezzo, they made Link's Awakening remakes and many other Zelda remakes. And then they made a brand new spanking Zelda game. Yeah, they made a Metroid remake before they had the brand new Metroid. So yeah, this is a trend that they're like, hey, prove to us that you can make a good Nintendo game, and we'll let you make a brand new one. So yeah, I think that is helping my prediction a whole lot. So I was just so impressed by the Super Mario RPG remake, and I didn't play the 7 or 8 Dragon Quest remakes, but everyone says those are like excellent. So I think ArtePiazza is definitely one of the more under the radar developers who have had some big hits, or they've proven they can handle these types of major projects. So I would love to see them make a brand new game. The only hesitation I have about this coming true is that Square might be like, we need all hands on deck for DQ12, because that thing is, who knows what's going on. But otherwise, hopefully I see a new ArtePiazza exclusive game in 2026. So Dale, hit me with your final prediction for Nintendo in 2026.
Yeah, I was struggling to come up with the last one, so it's a recycled one, but Smash Brothers again. Let's do it. Kirby Air Raiders is finished. Sakurai said there's no DLC coming for it. Surely he and the team are working on something else. I'd say the development team in Bandai Namco is still together. We got the new spirits randomly at the beginning of 2024, suddenly thinking, oh, the lights are still on in the Smash Brothers studio. We've
Yes.
got new spirits coming. So it makes me think that something is being worked on, and sometimes when I'm bored, I rewatch Sakurai's videos on his YouTube channel, and the one where he talks about Smash Brothers Ultimate, he said it was very easy to go from Smash Brothers Wii U to Ultimate because it's the same studio, all of the assets are there, the development team is mostly the same. So I could totally see it coming sooner rather than later, a brand new Super Smash Brothers. I would hope we'd get the announcement in the second half of 2026.
Yeah, Smash, it comes early in the lifespan of a Nintendo console. So within that year to year and a half span, it comes out. So I think at least an announcement, we could just be a few months away from at least the announcement of a new Smash Brothers game, which is a huge deal. Is there any character you're really hoping shows up in the new Smash Brothers game?
Oh, it's so many. When it comes to characters, I want to see relatively new Nintendo characters from the Switch generation. Characters like the player character from Pikmin 4 and riding around on the dog. I think that would be really fun. Ring Fit trainer or Octoling from Splatoon.
Oh, yeah.
Or Sakurai's bias could show through again and we get Noir DDD from Kirby Air Raiders. I could totally see him getting it over Bandana Waddle Dee. But I would love to see characters from newer Nintendo games, newer Pokemon, those that didn't have the chance to be in the last game.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot you could pick from, especially from just the Switch generation alone. Pauline, but multiple Paulines could be in the game.
Oh, yeah.
You could have adult and teenage Pauline. And yeah, I'm really excited to see, because you got to believe that Donkey Kong is going to be the new Donkey Kong in Smash Brothers, similar to what Link was like in Ultimate. Even Link, he could be Tears of the Kingdom Link with his Ultra Hand. So there's a lot you could do with even existing characters. So I'm really excited for Smash Brothers as well. Is Sakurai working on Smash already? Is he starting now that Air Riders has done? Like, what is going on? So I'm more curious about what is going on than I am about what character could be in the game, because I'm very curious about the development schedule of Smash Brothers, because the last new character came out, 2021 was Sora. That was quite a while ago. And I don't know if Sakurai has been making Air Riders for 4 straight years. Maybe he has, but we'll see.
I'd like to think Air Riders development wrapped up ages ago and he's been working on Smash.
I think we'll get an answer at least sooner than later.
Yeah.
All right, my final prediction. This is all really only interesting to you and me and people who live in Tokyo. But I think we're going to get a big Mother 3 exhibit in Tokyo in 2026. Because, of course, Dale, I'm sure you're aware, there are many Earthbound or Mother series related exhibits and pop-up shops and merch lines that happen all the time. In 2026, that is the 20th anniversary of Mother 3 in Japan. So I think we will see kind of a big Mother 3 exhibit in Tokyo, because in 2025, we had the Shape of Mother exhibit that had all the statuettes from the Mother series for the advertising. And also in 2024, which was the 30th anniversary of Mother 2, of Earthbound, they had the Secrets of Mother 2 exhibit that showed like a lot of the dev documents from the making of Earthbound. So they have had a Mother 3 pop-up shop before, but I think they would do like a big, like real deal exhibit for Mother 3 in Japan, showing off things that have never been shown before, a lot of dev documents or maybe some other materials, or they'll have some like brand new stuff for Mother 3 in Japan in 2026. I don't want to say remake. That's maybe, I think within the realm of possibility. Maybe ArtePiazza is making a remake of Mother 3. Maybe that is the game ArtePiazza is releasing on the Switch 2 in 2026, is a full-blown remake of Mother 3. But I think at least we will see a big Mother 3 exhibit in Tokyo, probably at Shibuya Parko in 2026.
Yeah, I could totally see it. The custodians of the Mother IP will do anything but make a new game. So the 20th anniversary, that series is much bigger here than it is in the rest of the world. I would love to see that. If there is such a thing, I would definitely go to it.
I always say they've made more money on selling just Earthbound lunchboxes and plushies than they have actual copies of the game. So yeah, big Mother 3 exhibit in Tokyo in 2026. Now we're going to do some flash predictions. These are just yes or no with a little bit of explanation. Dale, yes or no? Switch 2 console price goes up in Japan in 2026.
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
Definitely.
Are you thinking like 5,000 yen or what are you thinking?
I don't know about the multi-language model. That might stay the same, but I could see the Japanese one going up. PlayStation 5 price went up. A lot of things are going up across the board because of the RAM shortage and whatever, so I think it'll go up.
I think America 100%. So, listener, if you're an American who does not have a Switch 2 yet, I would go buy one right now because it is not getting cheaper. Japan, I'm a little bit more hesitant, but I think very possible because the RAM situation is becoming more and more like a real issue. And Furukawa has spoken about it. So I think I'm going to also say yes. Okay, yes or no? King K. Rool becomes a playable character in Mario Kart World.
Yes.
I'm going to say yes as well. People have been waiting for a big DK expansion for Mario Kart World because DK and Pauline, they only have one costume and we still don't have any big expansion for that yet. So if they want to do it, then maybe that's why they're making all those new models for Donkey Kong Bonanza because they're all future Mario Kart World racers.
It could be we get Lanky Kong and Mario Kart before the Koopalings.
Here's my Pokemon Gen 10 question. Pokemon Gen 10 on Switch 2 is 60 frames per second.
Yes.
Ooh, okay. That's a very bold one. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say maybe, I'm going to say 30-ish. Pokemon ZA is 60 on Switch 2.
I don't think what they make will be that much more sophisticated than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet running at 60 frames per second on Switch 2. So I could totally see it happening if they're clever about it.
Okay, yes or no? A new Nintendo ride is announced at Universal Studios Japan. Just announced, not released.
No.
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say it is Luigi's Mansion. Because I went to Universal Studios Japan this past February. But they recently closed down the Spider-Man ride. And in the Universal Studios Japan section, the New York area, there's really nothing there. It's really oddly vacant. And I think there have been rumors of Zelda ride in America, and there has been rumor of a Luigi's Mansion ride somewhere. And I think that it's going to be where the Spider-Man ride was in Universal Studios Japan. So I'll go yes for that one. And final prediction. Astrobot will be added to Smash Brothers.
1,000% yes.
Ooh,
just
okay.
kidding. No way.
That would be
No
like
way.
the big, I don't know, like line crossing moment, I think. If not just a PlayStation character, but like Astrobot specifically, that would be a big boon to Astrobot. And I don't know if Nintendo wants to give Astrobot that big of a rub. What about any sort of PlayStation character? Do you think that would be possible?
At first, I would love to see a Switch 2 port of Astrobot, but completely stripped of any Sony and PlayStation
That would be
references.
very funny.
And if that happens, then yeah, let's put Astrobot in Smash.
I'm going to say no as well, but that would be like I'm trying to think what could be like the biggest character they could add to Smash Brothers that would truly blow people's minds. And I think Astrobot is definitely up there in terms of, the reaction videos would pop off. Okay, so those were our predictions for Nintendo in 2026. So hopefully they all come true. We're going to find out 1 year from now. But until then, Dale, where can people find you?
Find me on YouTube. Channel name is DPG.
Great. And the links to everything will be in the podcast description. So give Dale a follow wherever you are and check him out on YouTube. So Dale, once again, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Today's feature is about the Suikoden 30th anniversary exhibit happening in Tokyo right now. And by now, I mean tomorrow is the last day. Sorry for being late. This is yet another case of where I regale you about a thing you can't go to anymore. There is the Capcom Creations exhibit that's still going on for another 6 weeks that I also went to, but I'll see if I can wrangle a guest to talk about it. If not, I'll cover it on the next episode or the episode after that. But I'll talk about the Suikoden exhibit right now because the number of English speakers who visited this thing, I'm going to guess that number is quite low. It's happening at Gallery Almo in Tokyo Dome City, the big shopping area / theme park surrounding the Tokyo Dome. I have actually been to this gallery before to see a Yusuke Nakamura exhibit, and he's a very famous Japanese artist you may know from the Asian Kung Fu Generation album covers and the Tatami Galaxy. He also did some art for Capcom, so he does have a loose gaming connection. But you know what has a bigger gaming connection? Suikoden. Konami says this is the first major exhibit for the series, and is here to celebrate the 30th anniversary and the HD remaster that came out last year. And I did cover that remaster on this very podcast, so go listen to that episode after this one. Now, I've been to quite a few gaming exhibits recently. The Final Fantasy IX Anniversary exhibit, Capcom Creations, which again is in an upcoming episode. But I would say the Suikoden one has a pretty interesting twist. It's themed like a museum in the world of Suikoden. So much of the exhibit isn't necessarily about the development of the game, but instead about the world of the game and recording the major moments as historical events. This is a truly interesting take on an exhibit, but you do need to come in with maybe some prior knowledge to truly get the most out of it. That may be true for all these types of gaming exhibits, but some try to make it a bit more general for mass audiences, so you would enjoy it even if you've never even heard of the game. But for the Suikoden one, it is a bit harder to get excited about what's on display unless you have some connection to it. Now, the gimmick of the museum does touch on something I wanted from the Final Fantasy IX exhibit, reproductions of things from the game. The FF9 exhibit had a great photo op with the Excalibur 2 and the command menu, and I said on that episode I wish they had more quote-unquote real things from the game on display. But the Suikoden exhibit, that's basically what it is. Things from the game are here right in front of your face as if they were real artifacts. You can touch them. You're not allowed to touch them, but you could still do so. There are 3 main sections: the museum dedicated to Suikoden 1, then an area dedicated to Suikoden 2, then a more general behind-the-scenes of the series section. The first big display piece of the exhibit is Luke in front of the Tablet of Stars, which keeps track of all the characters you've recruited in the game. And by Luke, I mean a statue of Luke that's about maybe 5-ish feet tall, so fairly life-sized. What I did like about this statue is that it's not just one big porcelain piece, but it is a statue with real clothes on it, so it looks a bit more authentic than one of those big Chikawa statues I see everywhere. The tablet also has all the names of the 108 Stars of Destiny from the game written on there as well. Also on the floor projected in front of Luke is the True Wind Rune, which, as we all know, Luke possesses. It's hard to portray a magical rune, but a projection is the best we can do in our mortal world. Once you go past Luke, on the walls you see some art from the games, like the Japanese cover and some watercolor paintings used for promo art. These look like the original art pieces they scanned for the promo material, but there was no placard explaining whether or not that was it. But I have to imagine this is the authentic original piece and not something somebody just painted again. Though some of the character art looked like it was cut out of some paper and then pasted on another piece of paper with ring binder holes in it. So was this painted on a piece of paper, cut out, and then stored in some binder at Konami? Again, sadly this isn't explained, but I did have questions about what these pieces were. I do think there is a big difference between this is the original watercolor painting from 30 years ago, and we printed off a digital file and framed it. The main Suikoden 1 section also had a big display section in the middle showcasing weapons from the game. The showpiece, of course, is the staff of the hero along with his green bandana. This is behind glass while the others aren't. But I do like this touch, albeit maybe it's unintentional. This is the leader of the Liberation Army. It's an important artifact, so it's going to be behind glass. We're not risking anything. Now, the bandana. It's green. That's basically it. And that's one of the many quandaries of the exhibit. Are the real things on display interesting to look at? Some certainly are. There are some great display pieces, especially the statues of the characters from the game. But some of them are like, this is just a normal thing. For example, in the games, you play a minigame called Chinchi Rorin, which is dice in a bowl, and then you shake it and you try to get the same number on the dice. They have this on display, and it is authentic to the game, but it is just regular dice in a blue bowl on a tatami mat. The bowl has a chip in it, like in the game, so I'll give it that. But again, if you don't know anything about Suikoden, you're just looking at dice in a bowl. And there are some other randomly displayed pieces here, like the hero's green bandana, Matthew's red scarf, which is just a red piece of cloth, and Ted's glove, which is a brown leather glove. I'm trying to think like if I went to an exhibit and they said, these are Mario's overalls, and it was just a pair of blue overalls, would I be excited? I mean, maybe to be honest, but some of the display pieces here were maybe a bit too bland. But there were indeed many genuinely fun things to see on display, namely the weapons. But going back to it, the hero staff is here, and it is life-sized and it looks like the one in the game. Now, it does look like a prop, but I do think you want to maintain maybe a bit of unreality in the objects to make them feel a bit more fantastical. Like the character statues, they do look like the anime people and not like real people. Although I do think that making a usable version of these weapons would be nice to look at. Also in the display area is the sword Kirinji, which is like this cool jagged weapon, Flick's sword Odessa, which is your typical JRPG sword, and Futch's dragon headband. This is definitely way cooler than a bandana. Also in this section near the ceiling, you've got a cutout of Kage, who is a ninja, so it makes sense that he would be hanging out here. That's just a fun little touch. The ceiling also has banners and other rune designs hanging from it, so you gotta look up. The last big part of the Suikoden 1 area is part of the dwarf vault, which has an axe, a cape, and a big door lever. You never really pull levers in real life, although there are so many in games. I've never been out and about and needed to pull a lever. It is a little surreal to see a big video game lever in front of you. They would be quite large in real life. And at the very end, you see a statue of the protagonist wielding the rune of life and death, so another good photo op. But then you enter the Suikoden 2 zone, which is laid out in a very similar format as in the first one. You've got the art, the character bios, and the real weapons and objects from the game, including Joey's dragon head staff and Nanami's nunchuck bow staff combo. That looks like it would be impossible to actually use. I've always kind of wondered why fantasy characters just don't use a sword. The hero always uses a sword. Why are you going with a giant nunchuck? Maybe it's like baseball batting stances, where you really just use what works for you, even though it may be unconventional and not the quote-unquote best way. And the Suikoden 2 hero is here in statue form with his tonfa weapons. Joey and Nanami, not statue worthy. I would say the Suikoden 2 area has more interesting props. There's a rifle, there's a mage staff, you see Shu's outfit. I was joking about just putting a scarf on display, but if you pair it with a full outfit, it does look nice. The captain outfit from the Blue and the Red Knights are also on display here. They do look a little cosplay-y, but again, you might lose something if you make them too realistic. The Celestial Sword is here with its big scary face. You see Sasurai's big dumb hat. Also, slight spoilers for Suikoden 2, but somebody gets poisoned via wine, and they have the broken wine glass on display. I mean, while a broken wine glass is kind of a silly thing to put in a museum, it would be an incredibly important historical object considering what happens in the scene. I know what you're thinking. Where's Luca Blight? Don't worry, he's here in statue form with a sadistic expression, about to strike you down, like he's rearing back his sword, about to hit you. Now, his armor is attached to his body as one piece, but he does have a bright satin cape. This is easily the best looking statue here, and you can take a photo of him about to execute you. That's what you want in a photo op. Another major display piece here is the mark on the Tenson Pass is here as well. If you came here in cosplay, you would have more than enough awesome photo ops to last you a while. The final section is more what you would expect from this type of exhibit. Dev documents, the physical games on display, and some posters and info of the other Suikoden games as well. The dev documents are mostly related to the story, with a lot of the script and planning pages. These pages are completely covered in notes. I have to wonder how anybody was able to parse this. You've got the printed out text, notes in black ink, notes in red ink, notes in pencils. It must be fun in a collaborative way to just write what you want on the paper, but when you hand it off to somebody who has to program the game, they must be like, what do I read? The planning documents and script pages are good to see, but I prefer looking at the original rough sketches and concept art. And there is a little bit of that here, but I would have liked to have seen more. I mean, there are hundreds of characters in these games. I want to see how they drafted one from scratch. And lastly, the most important section, the merch area. There was actually quite a lot of original merch for the exhibit. I don't think I've ever seen Suikoden merch anywhere, ever in all my years in Japan. The most expensive item here was 1,320,000 yen. And what was it? You could buy a statue of the hero from Suikoden 2. This was different from the one actually on display at the museum, and honestly not as high quality as that one, but if you want a JRPG protagonist in your home, now is your chance. Other merch, of course the acrylic stands are back with a vengeance. Since there are so many Suikoden characters, they were obviously going to make as many of these as possible. They also sold Bochan Dango, which just looks like normal Dango, but it does have a cool Suikoden cover on it. There were some clear files, some plushies, some keychains of character dialogue boxes, and the banners from the world of Suikoden, pin badges, and so forth and so on. But if I had to pick the best piece of merch, there were some embroidered Muku Muku socks, who is a hamster character from the game. This one pair of socks was over 2,000 yen though, so sadly I did have to pass. So that was the Suikoden 30th Anniversary exhibit / museum. If you are a hardcore fan of Suikoden, I think you will like how the series is brought to life in a way, and the dev documents are always amazing to look at from a historical standpoint. Compared to the Final Fantasy IX exhibit I went to a few weeks ago, you can tell which one has a higher budget. And the price for both exhibits was almost the same. Both were over 2,000 yen each. So I don't think this is the type of thing where if you don't know anything, you'd learn a lot about the series and have a better appreciation for it. The exhibit is really geared towards hardcore fans who already know a lot about the original two games. But it is hard to complain about a big exhibit for an RPG series that has mostly been dormant for decades. The last numbered Suikoden game was 2006. That was 20 years ago. And for Suikoden's 30th anniversary, we are mostly celebrating a series that was around for 10 years at its peak. So if you're in Tokyo, you've got one more day to go. Sorry, again. But I hope you enjoyed at least listening to it. And maybe they'll bring it back. There are 3 other Suikoden games they could talk about. All right, that's it for the feature, so let's check out the news. Nintendo has slightly opened the news door with a few big announcements these past few days. We're getting our first new set of Joy-Con 2s with light purple and light green hitting on February 12th, the same day as Mario Tennis Fever. I guess the court grass is light green. I'm not sure if there's any real connection, but it is nice to see different variations are finally coming out nearly a half year after the Switch 2's launch. These simply change the accent colors like the default Joy-Con 2s, so it's still mostly black. I'm waiting to see if they actually change the black shell to something else. If we don't get any colored shell Joy-Cons when the next Pokemon generation comes out, I will be a little concerned. And speaking of Mario Tennis Fever, we got an overview trailer highlighting some of the modes and all of the characters. No real surprises. I suppose they are really pushing Baby Waluigi as the big new character. If you put out that Baby Waluigi plushie, it will sell. It does look more content-rich than Aces, and all the gimmick quirks do look exciting. There's a Waluigi pinball one. The Fever rackets, while it may seem like a little dull on paper, they do diversify the gameplay quite a bit, and with the huge roster, you can definitely have a ton of combos between the character and the racket. Not too dissimilar from Kirby Air Riders, where the machine and the rider combo really makes it feel like you're playing a totally different game. The adventure mode has a fun concept with everybody turning into babies, but it does look like a 3 to 5 hour glorified tutorial, to be honest. From a gameplay standpoint, it looks, probably objectively good. You will play a match and have fun. But to be honest, I am not in a Mario Tennis mood right now. And at $70, I'm not a constantly complain about $70 type of guy. I do understand that's the world we are living in, but I can survive not playing a $70 Mario Tennis game. Bring back the vouchers. As one of 2 games from a voucher system that's a reduced price, I might bite. On NSO, we got Fire Emblem Path of Radiance for the GameCube. Quite a rare game to get physically, so it is nice that they are prioritizing these expensive titles, like Fire Emblem and Chibi Robo early on, as opposed to some of the more popular big sellers. We also got a Nintendo Music drop for the Path of Radiance soundtrack. And this is the second time Nintendo has delayed a typical Nintendo Music drop from Tuesday to a later day to time up with an NSO release. So if a Tuesday passes with no music release, and it's not a holiday in Japan, hey, where there's smoke, there's fire. Japanese sales, Switch 2 has once again passed the 200K mark during the Christmas week. Stock is pretty abundant in Japan, although there are still purchase restrictions at some stores, but you can get one fairly easily now. Pokemon Legends ZA on Switch 2 has also passed 1 million physically, making it the second Switch 2 game to pass a million with physical sales alone, the first being Mario Kart World. The Switch 1 version of ZA is at 1.5 million physically, so that's 2.5 million physical only in Japan. Safe to say, ZA is going to be a major seller. Will it have legs after the Pokemon Company probably announces Gen 10 in 6 weeks, though? I can see the Switch 1 sales tapering off a bit, but the Switch 2 version having some legs as more and more people enter the Switch 2 ecosystem, especially if Gen 10 is exclusive to Switch 2. Last bit of news and some Tokyo news. GrafT will have another PlayStation pop-up store in Shinjuku Station from January 13th. They'll be selling their usual stuff, but there's also some more eclectic items, like embroidered stickers of Arc the Lad 2. It is kind of funny what PlayStation IPs get merged from GrafT. The big 3, the Triforce if you will, is Dokodemo Isho, which is Toru the Cat series, Ape Escape, that has not had a new game in forever, and Astrobot, who certainly deserves to be there, but it is a little funny to put him next to these retro game series. But those are the 3 cute mascots Sony has at their disposal, so I understand. Other new merch includes mouse pads for the aforementioned series and Demon Souls, and I want to say Bloodborne also has new tote bags, sweaters, and maybe stickers. I'm really waiting to see if GrafT ever does a Nintendo collaboration. Nintendo seems to mostly rely on their in-house merch team or longtime partners, but GrafT makes good stuff, and I'd love to see what they do with some Nintendo IPs. But until that contract is signed, let's wrap it up. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app. Leave a 5-star review as well, it really helps. This podcast is also available on YouTube, so like and subscribe there as well. I'm on Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, Instagram. Just search for Tokyo Game Life or find the links in the podcast description. If you like the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends and on social media. The next episode will be on January 25th. See you next time. Matane!